Great. Thanks everybody for having me. Andrew Bermudez, co-founder and CEO of Digsy AI. I'd like to make this a little bit more interactive and make it productive and valuable for all of you. I'm mainly a former commercial real estate senior vice president for Lee & Associates. I was there from 99 through 2012, and then I left to go start commercial real estate technology startups. Started off with an on-demand tenant rep platform called Digsy, so get digsy.com. And from that platform, we got a lot into data analysis, and we were able to discover patterns in brokers' behaviors that would actually predictively enhance the close rate of brokers. We discovered things as if you just send a short list of properties, your likelihood that you're going to close a deal is 3.2%. And in order to quadruple your chances of closing, just putting together a face-to-face meeting with that person makes it jump to 15%. And from that, if you go tour any property, whether it fits or not, your likelihood to close actually jumps up to approximately 35%. And the way that we discovered these things was we were actually able to capture data. So we were able to see the communications between the tenant and the broker in a way that we weren't hounding the broker like we have to do most of the time, like, hey, put it in the CRM, put it in the CRM. We actually integrate directly with email server, so whether it's Office, Exchange, 365, Google Suite, whatever. And then we basically automate the next step for the broker to perform that next action that's going to enhance the closing probability by either setting up a template or different things. So basically where our learnings came from is the fact that if you look at CRM in its essence, most salespeople hate CRM. So about 60 to 70% of CRM deployments or implementations actually fail, and that's mainly due to lack of adoption. And if you start talking to sales reps why the lack of adoption, it's a lot of data entry. So what we did is we instead created a way and a system and an ecosystem, which from that business it morphed into Digsy AI, which is now a software platform that allows you to collect sales activity data from your brokers, from your agents, from your associates, etc., without having to demand. So we eliminate 95% of the data entry. But what that does for big firms that we work with, like Colliers and different other firms, is it allows you to identify who is actually booking meetings and why. So is cold calling or cold emailing or cold leaving voicemails better than something else? And what we found out, it varies in industries because we don't only focus on commercial real estate. My background's in there. The platform initially got designed, but we have more and more customers outside of commercial real estate. So we have, for example, telecom companies using us, insurance companies using us, payroll, etc., anybody in sales. So that kind of gives you a background of kind of where I'm coming from and all that. I would like to understand where what you guys do for a living and try to make it productive, because we found some really amazing data that might be able to help you, and I hope that this is productive, that it's something you can take actionable home, that you can act on to improve your business. So how many in brokerage here? Okay, so we got, okay, so about half the room. Who else, what's everybody else do? So, software, sales? Okay, same thing? Broker? Okay, great. And yourself?
Signs.
What's that? Signs? Okay, so for like signs, okay, great. Got it. Anybody else? Great, so majority broker and then software sales, so we're aligned. Sales, really, right? That's how we make money and we put food on the table. So interesting things that we found out is when we look at this data that we collect, we've been able to kind of identify kind of like best practices and little cheats that people use. A funny one is I actually put together these quick little YouTube videos, and if you just go to Digsy, D-I-G-S-Y on YouTube, you'll be able to find our channel. And there are like these little things that actually allow you to penetrate an account much faster. So we're all, we were talking about one last night that always surprises me, and David's been using it, and he says that his response rate's like outrageous, like 80% or something. But trying to get that prospect to respond to you, we've all like made cold calls, left voicemails, sent emails, and nobody responds to us, right? So one of the things that I had figured out, and in measuring the data, is how to get that person to respond. Because if you don't have to go, if you don't have to contact that person 5, 6, 8 times and kind of get something, at least a smoke signal, whether you should be focusing on that or try to get some information to see if there's an opportunity there, there's actually a really neat hack. So there's actually 2 ways that this works. One thing is when you call and you leave a voicemail, you immediately send an email and all it says is voicemail at the top. And then you just make a little short 1 or 2 liner saying, hey, I just left you a voicemail about X, Y, and Z. Here's an email to make it easier for you to respond, because everybody hates voicemail, right? There's actually t-shirts that say F voicemail. And I forgot where I saw it, but I want one of those. But it's really interesting that the percentage rate of returns actually happens on that. What I've also noticed is that more and more individuals are actually email driven, and what our data shows in the commercial real estate industry, at least, is that if you don't rely so much on email, it's not about quantity, it's really about quality. Most other people are actually using email, and you're just being drowned. Your appointment rate or your meeting booking rate's not that great. If you actually use the phone more and rely less on voicemail and rely less on email, you actually end up performing better. And to give you an example, what we've seen with other groups is that if somebody's emailing all the time, usually their appointment rate and their conversion rate's not that great. But if somebody's actually hammering the phones and just trying to get a hold of somebody and not leaving a lot of voicemail, just selective voicemail, maybe a target account, maybe I want to get in front of the facilities manager at this big retailer, for example, I'll read up and leave a voicemail that leaves a lot of data that actually gives me a lot more. It provides them a lot of information that I'm in touch with their brand, I'm in touch with what's going on, I've done some research. Maybe I even go to the extent of going on LinkedIn and trying to find a mutual connection. So, yeah.
Millennials. All they want to do is email. I want to shake them.
Yeah.
It's like you call them, and then you email them, and then they email you this question, you're like, dude, just call me.
Yeah.
Let's discuss it. Then they email you back, and you're like, just email your question. I'm like, no, dude.
Yeah.
It's like voicemail doesn't exist for the younger people. They don't even want to pick up the phone.
Yeah, so there's actually a sales statistic. So voicemail doesn't work, actually. Your response rate's super low. But the most effective voicemails are actually the max. Do you know what the max length of a successful voicemail is?
6 seconds.
No, not that short. But actually multiply it by 2. It's actually 18 seconds. And they work pretty well if they're that short. So yeah, it depends, right? So that could be an advantage and a disadvantage. Now, if the millennial is your target customer, then you kind of have to work at their pace. But if the millennial is let's say your employee, or if the millennial is a potential hire, then let them lose. Let them lose, because if you're competing, let's say yourself, right? If the data tells you that interactivity works better at sales than sending all of these emails or Snapchat messages back and forth, let them lose. So you pick up the phone and you kick their ass. That's it. Just compete them, beat them at their own game. While you do stupid shit, I'm gonna do what works, right? But if the problem becomes if you actually have them as a potential customer, that's where it breaks out. And my office, for example, we have a team of about 10 to 11 people at our company, and they're all millennials. So I've been through this. And I'm technically a millennial, but I don't consider myself one because I'll pick up the phone. What does work a lot of the time is showing the data. So a lot of them will do things efficiently, but as soon as you're able to track the data and say, hey, look, our data shows that if you jump on the phone with this customer and onboard them to our software, our engagement skyrockets. And this is actually a true metric. For us, if you sign up on your own, we did A/B tests, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with this. Somebody signs up, we let the software train you. Somebody signs up, so every other one, we're actually jumping on the phone with them, walking them through, and the other one we left alone. The interactivity destroys leaving people alone. So you have to jump on the phone, but once you let the data show the whole team, usually they're pretty apt to jump on, because the mentality is I'm doing things that are with today's times, but also in today's times we rely a lot on data to prove what works and what doesn't work. So as soon as you show that, usually you get buy-in pretty quickly. And it's a very, very collaborative culture, per se. Like, I've noticed that what I've had to learn, even though I am a millennial, is I have to involve everybody and get everybody on board and get buy-in before they do something. I can't go up to them and say, Dave, you're going to go email all these customers and you're going to say this. That doesn't work. So there's a little of this kind of different cultural game you have to do with the millennials on that side. As in the brokerage side, like, what is your biggest challenge trying to get in front of an account?
Finding the right person.
Okay. So one was finding the right person.
I think sometimes it's just they already have a relationship, so
Yeah.
trying to understand, break that relationship, if you will, or
Right.
they give you their ear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's actually a really good thing to get to know. So actually, there's so if you look at sales data and you look at all the research, 70% of individuals buy not because it's going to create an advantage at all or a benefit. They're going to buy because it solves a problem. So usually, if somebody has an existing relationship, there isn't a problem. But if you really break down is, let's say, since we're at ICSC, there's retailers. So that individual broker may have offices all over, but you may have a presence in districts where you don't. So there's a couple of things that you actually kind of like peel back the onion, and then you kind of position yourself as a solution. And it's, okay, they're most likely not going to dump their broker, but I can find out what issues they are having with that broker. So the question is, hey, I noticed that you guys use, let's say, C&W or somebody else. Are there any challenges in that relationship when you go off market? Let's say when you go to, Omaha, or when you go somewhere else. Would love to chat with you to see if there's any issues on that end, and just do a discovery call, really, and try to find the angle, because it's really about, if you look at it, it's not so much the product or the service that they're buying, it's they're buying the person. Because all of us can do what that broker is doing currently, but that broker has a really in-depth, entrenched relationship with that customer, right? So it's all about trust at the beginning, right? You have to become trustful and real. So you need to wedge yourself almost like the best friend to that broker or that relationship. Figure out a way to get yourself in there to really start like kind of proving yourself in the trust, and then over time you can either co-broker deals with that agent, or if you find that there's actually something more problematic, then you've already started interacting with them, or maybe done a few deals, so it's easier for you to break into that account. But you don't sell water to a person who owns owns like Perrier or something like that, right? So you really need to. The way that we do sales a lot of the times is, hey, buy my product. It's like, hey, we want to understand on the sales side what issues you're having with your sales reps and trying to increase their productivity. Is it data? Is it CRM compliance? What is it? But the same thing is, look at sort of that relationship and try to wedge yourself in some angle and try to do a discovery call. And those are really hard, but most of the time it's just trying to get a response from the person, right? And there's like always like these little interesting stories where somebody will mail somebody a brick with like a business card and like a ribbon or something. It's a lot easier a lot of these times. I mean, usually what I do that works very well for me is I'll go in and I'll identify who I want to talk to. And I actually did a YouTube video on this if you guys are interested in looking it up. But let's say I want to talk to Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce. So what I do is I'll just look him up on LinkedIn, and then I'll see my mutual connections. And then if I see that, let's say, for example, Bucky has a relationship with Mark, but Bucky and I have only interacted over social media. He doesn't really know what my software is, right? I'll take two approaches. If Bucky doesn't know me that well or knows my product and service, he's most likely going to make an introduction. But let's say another contact knows me really well and knows what I'm doing. I'll shoot them an email because it's a no-brainer. They know what I'm doing, etc. Or I'll call them up and ask them, and then I'll shoot them an email that makes it easy for them to just forward that email so I don't have to think about it. But if Bucky is my only connection, what I'll do is I'll actually call Bucky, chat with him, catch up with him. I'll show him what I'm doing, and then I'll say, hey, look, Salesforce has a really big problem trying to get people to adopt it, and we can actually capture the data and push it into Salesforce. So I think it would be a win-win for us to talk about collaborating. This is after I show them the software, our program, our platform, whatever. And would you feel comfortable doing that? And I could just shoot you an email that you can just forward. And the likelihood that he's going to say yes is pretty high. But a customer is 4 times more likely to buy if you get referred in. So I would take the additional step, and as opposed to making 100 calls that day, I'd rather make 10 quality calls that increase my chances of success. And what you'll notice is if you are tracking metrics, which our software does it without you having to input, you're going to notice a lot of these best practices start to resonate. But what we also discover along the way is we discover practices that weren't even written about before, or things like that, like what time of day to call. Everybody says the time of day to call, the best times to cold call are 8 to 10 a.m. and then 3 to 6 p.m. Well, depending on the industry, that could change. Right? If your decision maker is super busy in the warehouse, but the only time is at lunchtime, let's say you're selling forklifts or something like that, your best times to call may be 11 to 2. So knowing that piece of data to be able to elevate your performance and your conversion is really, really important. And you can, and the data changes all the time. It might change by season. Like we all know, for example, that things are really, really tough as far as sales close, like right around Easter time. Then they pick up really quick after 2 weeks. And then when you go into summertime, it's kind of tough. And then when you go to the end of the year, it slows down a little bit, or it accelerates. But depending on the industry, in retail it might be different than office and industrial, right? So data is a king in this stuff, and it can actually get you an advantage over other performers.
Any tips for, you said the lack of adoption, it doesn't happen, and any tips as to how you can either get your team members to adopt, or you yourself can adopt to it?
Yeah,
because
so
now there's so many tools and you just don't know what tool to necessarily pick.
Right. So, yeah. So usually if you have to ask the question, there's a problem. So that's it. So if you can't get people to adopt a software, it's actually, if you look at it, it's not doing the job that you're hiring that tool to do. So the problem with CRM, for example, the lack of adoption is, I go walk a building, I go to a conference, I come back with a stack of business cards. I'm a salesperson. I make money by talking to people, emailing people, getting in front of meetings. I don't make money sitting in front of my computer entering this shit for like an hour and a half. I don't. That's a problem with lack of adoption. If I'm trying to, let's say, if I'm emailing a prospect, having to remember to BCC an email address is tough. I have to remember that, and I have to do another tap. Even though it seems minimal, I have to do that. But what if the prospect responds to me? Now I've got my Salesforce or my CRM, and now I got to go to my email. There's no redundancy. And if I send it for the CRM, it's not going to be in my Outlook, sent items, or my Gmail, whatever I'm using. So then you start like thinking of all this stuff, and they go, okay, well, if I have to log the call or log the email, BCC, then I have to go into the system, I have to click to follow up, click the button for new activity, type in the activity, select what time I have to follow up, and do all that stuff, and click the reminder button, then hit save, and then I have to grab that guy, create an opportunity, and then move that guy from that stage to, let's say, for example, I got a meeting with that guy, and then I'm done. 15 minutes later, like, where's the instant oatmeal in this stuff, right? Like a salesperson shouldn't be doing this stuff, because that's not how they make money. The thing with CRM and sales tools is we look at them as productivity tools, but they're really reporting tools. That's why CRMs sell to the sales manager and the sales leader, because they go, I know that you have to report to the street, I know you have to report to the shareholders. This gives us the ability of seeing our pipeline, where deals are at, etc. But what they don't tell you is you're going to be spending the 3 weeks out of the month running around chasing your salespeople to enter the stuff into Salesforce or the CRM. And that's where you get lack of adoption. It's a lot of work, and that's why you have such a high failure rate on that. The way to do it is, today we have so many APIs, right? You come back with that, you can take a picture of that photo, and it can get transcribed. And it can even get transcribed by a human being with accuracy, which is what we do. And then you get a text message saying, oh, by the way, your contact's already in your Digsy AI. Boom. Okay. if you have a stack of business cards, you can all scan them, and then there's a little button, and you can send them, and then they all get transcribed. So you get ultimate productivity. So we don't call ourselves a CRM. We're not one. We can act like one, but we call ourselves, it's all about sales productivity. You send an email, you don't have to copy anything. You just send it. The system knows that I'm emailing Bucky. You're in my database, so it shows me everything chronological order. And if you reply to me and I have like 100 emails, I'm not going to sift through that. I'm going to see, hey, did Bucky email me back? And I'm going to go to your contact record and see your reply. Now, if I want to move you to a stage, right, which says, okay, you're a potential sales opportunity, I got a book, I can go in there. Let's say I want to call you. I can call you from my cell phone, my desk phone, or let's say I'm at my cabin. I can call you. The system already knows that you made the call, how long it was, did you get voicemail, etc. You can optionally add a note, and you can move it to a new stage all at once. And if you don't have the time to do that, it'll remind you later. If you want to schedule a follow-up, you just click that, pick the calendar button, and you're done. None of this different screens. But that's high-level productivity, and why we see 4 times the adoption of like traditional sales systems. I mean, Dave's a user. I think, Linda, you've seen the platform. Not sure if you're a user or not. And you see that. But the magic behind that is none of our customers have to run around 3 weeks out of the week to, or 3 weeks out of the month to hound their salespeople to enter the data. So you get adoption by removing friction. And then once you remove the friction, if you can add value, which, for example, I use our own software. I get an email in the morning saying you got to follow up with 10 people. I click on that, it automatically logs me into the mobile site, and I can actually pick templates that I've already done, and I can set templates as default saying, hey, following up, want to set a meeting, etc. But that's how you do high adoptions. You got to remove the friction and add value. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that type of platforms before. So you have to add a candy coating to what you're trying to get your sales reps to do.
So you're saying people don't adopt things because it doesn't work for them?
It's a combination of things. So if you look at adoption, right, either there's friction and or the value proposition is not being manifested. And there could be other things too, like, for example, the software glitches or something like that. And it could be anything from like a software to a product, a physical one.
I just thought it was always just a human condition. People don't like change.
That could be too. So that's actually, we understood that. And that's why in our system you can live in your Outlook or your Gmail, and we integrate fully. So in order, okay, I got to track this sales opportunity because I want to make sure that I remember to follow up, because I can't do that on my Outlook or I can't do that somewhere else. So you can actually just suck it in. It automatically populates it. But you call from your desk phone. You don't have to call from a cell phone. You call from your cell phone, your desk phone, and you can use your Outlook, your Gmail, etc. So that's what I mean by friction. When you have to change, there's that friction. So if you can keep them in what they're already doing, you don't have to do anything different. I'm just going to give you a really tool that allows you to organize all this stuff and automate all those things.
Have you thought about, I mean, I'm a huge believer in the product, Dixie II, and it's about telling my team to use it all the time.
Thank you.
And,
yes.
You don't want to change.
So, and, I think it's, you and I have talked about how, like, I don't want to have to bounce back between email and Digsy, and it's great that you can now do it, and you're adding, the phone feature and Friday, I think, right?
Yeah, it's today or Friday, yeah.
Reply, you're adding, so that you can reply to emails within it. Have you thought about adding a suggested follow-up date, based on the metrics that you guys have developed?
That's actually coming. Yeah, so one interesting feature, so there's the suggested follow-up. There's other feature that we're actually, I think it's either in development or being spec'd out. I saw it this week on Monday. So as salespeople, we may forget to, let's say we have an important contact that we want to do business with, and we've been interacting with them, but for some reason we haven't put it in Digsy AI, or we put it in our CRM, we haven't scheduled a follow-up, so naturally things are going to fall through the cracks. The system will actually suggest, based on your activity, whether it's your email activity or anything else, it'll actually look at who were you interacting with frequently, and all of a sudden you stopped. and it's been 30 or 45 days, and it'll actually bring them to the front, and it'll be called suggested follow-ups, and it'll say, hey, by the way, here are like people that you haven't talked to in like 30, 22 weeks that were highly engaged in, let's say the stage of the funnel is active deals. That's a bad one, right? If you're not talking with them like daily. Let's say nurturing, which is your sales opportunities that you're trying to get meetings for. It'll do those, and it'll do people further up the funnel, which is, people in your inbox or people and that. And it's all about really productivity, and not only making the suggested follow-up, but then also saying, okay, you haven't touched base. Based on the context of this, I'm going to suggest that when you click the email button, here's the suggested email template, and then you can tweak it. But when you send it through Digsy AI, like it's in your sent items. If you send it through your Outlook, it's in Digsy AI, so you get full redundancy. But what we're really building is we take the sales data, like everything, like getting a referrals for time, and we're baking all of these habits in addition to discovering new habits based on, okay, what led you to book that appointment? Was it a certain combination that you and your teammates are doing? Like, is it email, phone, email? Is it a particular time? So it's all about grabbing the data, make it seamless so that you can actually be a lot more productive. Really, we just want our users to kick everybody's ass. I mean, that's really what we want to do. And make it easy, Fisher Price, where we don't have to become data scientists, the system does it for us. And that's really the vision. But yeah, long answer to your question. Suggested follow-ups is actually coming out, and it's coming out really soon. So we're probably looking at like 2-3 weeks. Anybody? I mean, I have a lot of sales data. If anybody has a question about, maybe you're trying to break into an account or a customer, or trying to look for a channel that will bring you a lot more recurring business incoming, I'd love to help, because that's a lot of the insights that we have.
This isn't really related, but it's kind of related. I think what I'm seeing with a lot of companies, a lot of turnover. You'll have somebody that you've been working with for a long time, and it's great. All of a sudden, I'm leaving. You're like, ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you, you're just like, oh, well, there's going to be a new guy or girl. And you're just like, I know you can't answer that, but I just wondered, what are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like it's happening more and more and more.
Yeah.
The young people just come and go.
Yeah. So that's actually a statistic. And are you referring to millennials, or are you referring to?
I'd say probably.
Yeah. And you're seeing turnover
We're
is.
your contact, and
Yeah.
then they leave.
Yeah. So there's actually two things on there. So I think that most employers don't look at it in a defensive way. So keeping a nurturing talent is the number, there's 3 jobs a CEO should do. Get the money, right, to make sure that we're in business. Recruit top talent and retain top talent, right? And then the third one is vision. And they all are simultaneously equal weight, but people is the number one thing, because an investment, when you hire somebody, the ramp-up time can be anywhere between 3 to 6 months. And a lot of the times what people leave is, it's not like before, I needed a job. These millennials, and I wouldn't just say millennials, because I think this has been, I think it's everybody really. We just prioritize things differently. It's like, hey, I want to believe in the company, I want to believe in the mission, I want to make a change and an impact, right? It's less about stuff and money, really. And that's how I operate as well. So the culture's everything. So you have to have a mission that people buy into. If people love their job, they're not going to move, period. They're not going to move. They're not going to move to another company. The money, maybe they get a bonus, etc. But if they really believe in the mission and you're actually doing a good job at retaining culture and all of that, we've had people come into our company that actually get paid, that have accepted lower pay to work for us than to go work somewhere else. And that's not something we're proud of. It's, when we were a startup, that's what we found out, and it wasn't like they told us. They told us as they got more comfortable. That was interesting. But it's really, I don't think that entrepreneurs and business owners in general think about this problem. The fish stinks from the head down, which means if they're leaving, it's my fault. and I need to find out from them what is it. Most likely they won't tell you, but all it is like, hey, if you absolutely love the culture, the mission, and that, and you're paying people well, right? There's no reason for people to leave. But the other thing too is growth. So most people think that you can just park a human being and have them do this robotic thing indefinitely, and that's not the way people want to grow. So you have to have not only the culture but the right setup to be able to grow these people and really care about them, really, because it's a lot cheaper to hire from within. They already know the culture, they know how to operate, they know where the keys to the bathroom are, you know, they already know how the system works, and they can pick up new skills to move forward. But usually it's the entrepreneur's fault. If it's the founder or the co-founders who are at fault for people leaving, really. And people don't just pick up and leave, right? Like if I'm in a happy marriage, I'm not gonna pack up and leave tomorrow, unless I get abducted by aliens or something. But yeah.
So how are you generating business? How and why are people coming to Diggsy? What's your business model there?
Yeah, so there's two ways. We pump out a lot of content that helps the individual sales contributor. Like we release a lot of we're openly sharing data findings that we find. We're sharing tricks. We pump out a lot of content, blog posts. We pump out a lot of things, interviews, and that SEO, and people. We get people writing about us because it is a unique approach, and we have pretty high adoption numbers for the type of industry that we're in. So that's one way. The other way that we do is we actually get a lot of referrals from our customers, but the way that we collect the most seats is actually individually reaching out to, like, let's say sales managers in an organization saying, hey, you made this $60 million investment in Salesforce. I know from your people that less than 3% of your sales team is using it. We have something that can actually help you improve that adoption rate, and will complement a lot of the stuff. And the big thing is now we're able to get analytics in real time to see what works, what doesn't work, so that we can basically get everybody to perform exponentially better. Would you like to take a look at it? And usually when we break into an account like that, we can go anywhere from 5 to 20 to 100 seats. And usually we tend to go with, like, you know, bigger companies that have multiple sites and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Cool. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.